Hey everyone, thank you so much again for joining us for another one of our Career Day interviews. Now this one, again, we're going into the environment. So we have been talking a lot about animal-specific careers. We're also kind of talking about how they affect the environment as a whole. So those of you who are like me and don't want to go and necessarily focus on one thing, guess what? You don't have to. If you want to go and protect everybody, you can. It's a great thing. So we're going to keep talking about these different career choices. So thank you so much once again for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to give out a huge shout out once again to everyone who has been so supportive. Thank you so much. We have had amazing guests coming in. You guys have been kind. You guys have been so just welcoming, and it's been humbling to go and have you guys as amazing supporters. So thank you for that. Having kind people in our life makes working in 110-degree heat a lot more bearable. So thank you so much for that. If you're unable to come and visit us right now, that is okay. We want everyone to stay safe and healthy. And that includes us, you, our animals, everybody. So you do what you need to do to feel comfortable. We appreciate that. We also ask that if you're unable to come and visit, feel free to think about a donation or even sponsoring an animal. Donations can be made right here on our Facebook page or by visiting thelionhabitatanch.org. We really do appreciate those donation guys. I'm not kidding when I say even just a few dollars really, really helps. $5 a day can feed a tortoise. So it's a really, really easy way to just go, and maybe you're not going out for your morning cup of coffee, you can still help us. So we do appreciate that. All right, let's get to it, guys. If you don't know who I am, I'm Keeper Kylie. You guys have been following me for quite a long time though, so I'm pretty sure you know who I am, but let's go and get to my guest. Hello, guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there, everyone. My name is Allie Bosworth. So I am a fisheries biologist with NOAA, which is also known as, in the longer words, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. What a lot of people don't know about NOAA is that we don't just do your weather service, but that's how everybody knows who NOAA is. We actually are responsible for maintaining the endangered species that are in our marine environments, so our oceans. So my job is to work with fish specifically that travel in and out of the ocean, between the ocean and freshwater environments. So those types of fish are called anadromous fish, and they're my favorite things in the whole world. I love them. So mostly those types of fish are salmon and sturgeon, and that's what I specify here in Sacramento, California.
That is so cool. And I got to learn a new word. I'm going to have you type that out because I'm going to go and put that in, guys. Guess what? You're going to get a spelling quiz at the end of this. We're going to go and make this full circle. That is pretty amazing. So yeah, let's go and talk about that, guys. What we do when we talk about the environment is we tend to think in terms of bubbles. So it's like she was saying, weather bubble and your ocean bubble, and you're like bubbles. Guys, they all touch each other. They all are interconnected. So we have to make sure that when we're protecting everything, we really do mean everything. So this is a great puzzle piece of how that fits in. And you're working with species that are going to be affecting a lot of different environments and habitats. It's going to affect us in a lot of ways. So that is a really, really good and important part. So I am really excited to get into this. That is so amazing. So, what kind of education would you say that this is requiring? And feel free to talk about formal education, also any certifications that you might need. CPR or Scuba is usually a big one. And then what kind of skills? If you see a person and you're like, you're really organized and I really like that. Let's talk about what makes a really good fisheries biologist.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of an interesting pathway. So I started my career path out of college not knowing what animals I wanted to work with. I wanted to work with everything under the sun. I wanted to be able to work with whatever I wanted. So I went to college for a dual bachelor's degree in both marine biology and zoology, and added on a minor in scientific diving because why not? I can be a biologist.
You have your free time, right? So many free time in that dual bachelor's.
Yeah, I didn't say it wasn't a little ridiculous. So it was obviously a very taxing 5 years for me, but those degrees allowed me to do pretty much anything I wanted. So while I was in college, I did a variety of different jobs trying to find out what I wanted to do. But as far as formal training, my bachelor's degrees and my scuba certifications are the only professional certifications I have. I am what's called a NAUI scientific diver. So I'm certified as a master scuba diver and also qualified by the American Academy of Underwater Sciences to perform underwater surveys, which is super cool, but not something I get to do in my current job very often, sadly. Um, so besides that, there's a lot of really technical trainings that I have to do for every job I've done. So there's a variety of different animals that I've worked with in the past. Each one requires, a certain amount of learning, a certain amount of handling experience. So when you work with these animals in the field, everyone has a different safety level as far as in what ways they can be caught, what ways they can be handled, and how they need to be released to make sure that they're safe. So that's something that's really important to every job. And then also there's a lot of different things that we do with these animals that require special training. So things like tagging them to monitor their movements, doing that procedure requires a lot of training. So I have a lot of really interesting and very out there types of trainings that I've done with every job. And some of them I didn't even know it existed until I was sitting in the training learning how to do it. So
Definitely. And let's kind of go and elaborate on that. When you're talking about keeping the animals safe, what are you looking for? What qualifies as keeping them safe? Are you talking about specific handling? Are you talking about how they're interacting with the environment once they're out there? Let's elaborate on that a little bit more.
sure. And the easy answer is going to be all of the above. So with my job, I'll directly handle some wild animals. So there's a lot of safety measures that go into that. So my current species, working with salmon and sturgeon, obviously they can't be out of the water for very long. They can have damage to their gills, which is how they get oxygen. So we need to make sure that they're kept in the water and that we're not doing any harm to their bodies, which is a little different than your normal fishing procedures. When you're going to eat a fish, you're not really super worried about making sure that he stays healthy as you put him in your bucket to take home, right? So we need to make sure that our fish, because they're usually coming in to lay their eggs in the rivers when we're handling them, so we need to make sure they can make the rest of their journey to where they're laying their eggs, which can be hundreds of miles away sometimes. They travel insane distances to get back to their spawning grounds. So species handling is a very important aspect of my job, but also understanding how to not cause them harm in their environment is an incredibly important aspect of my job. So my job right now is to enforce the Endangered Species Act, which is a federal rule that protects fish and wildlife of different types that are at risk. And a lot of that risk is from human interactions with their environment. So in my area in Central California, we have a lot of flood issues. So we have a lot of our riverbanks have levees, which is just big, tall banks along the rivers to protect people's houses. But the problem is that changes the fish habitat a lot, and it changes the natural function of the river. So a lot of my job is to talk with a lot of the agencies that do different flood procedures and make sure that they're not harming the fish's habitat so that our fish can have a better chance at making it in their man-made, altered, but still natural environment.
That takes a lot of work. You're talking about so many different factors. Yes, there's natural factors. There's a lot of human interaction. You're trying to keep the people safe. You're trying to keep the fish safe. That is quite a bit. I bet you your days are just full of relaxation time all the time.
So much.
That is pretty interesting. So why don't you talk about what is, I guess, the best normal day for you? What would it kind of look like? And then we'll talk about what a totally abnormal day would like. What's something where you're like, oh, this is going to be a crazy, crazy adventure. But let's talk with just the normal. You wake up, what's it look like?
So the normal day and the average life of me is sadly right now a lot of meetings. And in the world that we live in right now, it's a lot of virtual meetings. So I spend a lot of time talking with all sorts of different people to make sure that I have the best knowledge possible to be able to do my job. So I've made a lot of friends who are engineers, who work with water quality, who work with water chemistry, who manage and maintain vegetation, because that's a big part of my fish habitat as well. So I spend all day on the phone in design meetings or in discussions about how best to rebuild a site to make sure that it's good fish habitat. And then I'm on the phone with biologists all the time talking about what our current fish populations are and what their monitoring procedures are right now and what we can do to change the monitoring or to do better with our monitoring. So there's all sorts of different meetings. And then there's also the other aspects that tie to the Endangered Species Act, where we review our species to make sure that they're actually being recovered like they're supposed to be.
So now, what is something that will be totally kind of off the wall? What is probably the weirdest day you've had where you're like, cool, this is what I do for a living?
So every once in a while, probably about once a month, I get to do something really fantastically fun. So it changes with season to season. Usually it's a good fun day out in the field. So some of those days have looked like doing snorkel surveys in some of the higher reaches where our fish are holding over the summer. So big, deep, cold pools far up in the middle of nowhere. And I just get to snorkel through huge schools of fish, and it's fantastic. And then something else that's really cool, I got to do this last year, is we went out and rescued some stranded sturgeon, which are about 6 foot long fish in our area right now. And we surgically tagged them. So a lot of people don't know that with some of these larger fish, we actually do surgery on them. So we use a scalpel and we do surgery and implant tags into their abdomen and then sew it back up. So one of the things I get to do occasionally is I'm a trained sturgeon surgeon.
Oh, if that's not on a business card somewhere, I'm going to be so disappointed. We need that in our day. Oh, that is a pretty amazing. Are you guys responsible for some of the fish counts in general, or do you work together to be like, this is what a healthy population should be? These are what we think our numbers are. Is it you guys doing it, or do you have to work with other entities?
It is a massive joint effort between multiple different federal agencies and state agencies and some non-government partners as well. So we do a lot of work in conjunction with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as a lot of the water agencies like Bureau of Reclamation and Department of Water Resources. And a lot of these different groups do their own monitoring. A lot also do their own research. So a lot of that has to come together into a joint effort to make sure that we have all the best data. And one of our policies at NOAA is to be sure that we are utilizing the best available science. So as you can imagine, that involves a whole lot of people and a whole lot of biologists and a whole lot of science and collaboration. So it's one of the fun parts of our job is I get to work with and talk with everybody.
That sounds pretty darn awesome, though. I bet those kind of collaboration meetings can be so interesting. There's probably a lot of facts, there's probably a lot of figures, but you're like, wow, that's cool. I bet that gets said at least twice during a meeting, and that makes it a pretty good meeting in my case.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So this is probably going to be the hard one. It always is. What is your favorite animal? And it might not be an animal that you're working with now, and it might be an individual. Have you ever come across this really cool salmon or sturgeon that stuck with you? Or maybe you have something else that when you think about your favorite animal, this is what comes to mind.
See, this one is always a funny one for me because I work with fisheries and I have for about the past 8 to 10 years or so, but that wasn't anywhere that I thought I was going to end up. And now when I was in college, I had a professor tell me, work with an animal you like, but not one you love, because that is some of the best advice. Because if you work with what you love, you might not love it anymore and it becomes a whole lot less fun. So I really love my job because I like fish, but the animals I love are sea turtles and octopi. They are my favorites. The sea turtles are what got me into wanting to work with animals in my professional career. When I was about 9 years old, I got to dig up a hatching sea turtle nest and I got completely attached to the baby turtles, of course, and we got to release them into the wild, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that sucked me in at a really young age. And then in college, I got the joys of actually working with cephalopods, both in captivity and playing with them in the wild when I encountered them. And they are absolutely amazingly intelligent creatures and just so interesting. They have fascinating differences in their physiology and what they can do, in their functions and colors. And they have so many cool things. They're one of the coolest animals. Highly recommended for anybody's favorite animal.
10 out of 10, guys. Definitely 10 out of 10 for these guys. And just so you guys know, cephalopods are squids and octopi, cuttlefish, things like that. So highly recommend, because yeah, they are adorable, and they are, like she said, ridiculously fascinating. If y'all don't believe that aliens live among us, you will. So what is something about your job that nobody would expect? When you tell people what you do on a daily basis, when do they always stop and go, I'm sorry, you do what?
So everybody thinks that I spend all of my time fishing. So when you hear that somebody is a fisheries biologist, the very first question I get is, great, where can I go to catch the fish? Well, not really my job. So I have the opposite of trying to protect the fish. So I know where my endangered fish are. I don't know where the fish you're trying to catch are, because you're not allowed to catch my fish. So I actually spend very, very little time fishing. And when I am trying to capture fish, it's never with a hook and line like your average fisherman. So no, I do not know where the good fishing holes are. I do not know where the good fishing spots are for whatever species you're trying to capture. And I do not spend that much time fishing in my free time or during my work time.
That I can believe too, definitely. So kind of coming off of that, what are some misconceptions about your job? What do you think? You're like, oh wait, you do this, or you kind of, it must be boring or something like that.
So the misconception, first of all, when working with an agency like NOAA, is everyone assumes I work for the Weather Service first. And then when I elaborate and say, no, we actually have a very big fisheries agency side of NOAA, they're like, oh, that's really cool. So you work with fish outdoors a lot. I'm like, well, not really anymore. So I'm in more of a management level position, and it's a lot of policy and direction and managing the species as a whole, as opposed to doing smaller hands-on monitoring, which is what I used to do. And I loved it, but it felt like something was missing. I got to collect a lot of data, but I never saw my data go anywhere or be used for anything. And I really wanted to feel like I was making a difference with my species. So NOAA is an agency that, because they regulate these fish, we actually have a very big impact on what we can do to ensure that they are recovered and that these species do better from a high level. So it's a big misconception that, all I do is capture a couple fish and check boxes and collect some data, when actually we're making massive impacts and benefiting these species at a really high level from the whole species aspect, not just a single population or one small group of fish. So it's a very interesting position that a lot of people don't know even exists.
That has to be so satisfying, because we do know what it's like to have the information and not see it used. That can be one of the most frustrating parts of this as we go out, and that's why we like talking to you guys. We want you to take this information and to use it, to utilize it, to get it out there, because there are some amazingly smart people in this world who know what they're doing, and if we listen to them, I promise you, you're going to see some amazing changes in the world. But this is at least you are doing that part. That is something where we fight for it. That is pretty darn cool. So kudos to you for making that, because yeah, we're cheering you on down here. Woo!
Thanks.
What is probably one of the hardest parts of your job?
Being stuck in an office all the time. So I started my career as a field biologist. So that means I'm going outside in the field. I was doing a lot of hands-on data collection. I was snorkeling, I was scuba diving, I was hiking, I was doing all the really fun stuff. And, as you get older and you realize that, it's really fun, but it just doesn't make the impact in the world that you really want to make. So it was a really hard decision to move into more of a management level position. And it's hard not to go out in the field and handle fish all the time because I really do love it. But it was also one of the easiest decisions to make because now I'm in a position where I love my job so much because I can see that difference. But some days it is really, really hard to just sit in that office through 8 hours straight of meetings and pretend like I don't want to be out in the river.
All right. So what is your favorite part of the job?
So I really love that I get to use so many different aspects of science and join them all into one group and really just, you know, develop an idea, develop a design, develop a restoration project from the ground up. So I get to use hydrology and I get to use engineering and water quality. And I get to sit through all these meetings where we talk about things that I didn't know I would ever need to know about. We talk about rock sizing and how the different sizes of rocks we place in the river changes the fish habitat. We talk about how that impacts the water chemistry and the types of soil we use on restoration sites, how those impact the water, and how they can change how the sediment moves within the river. Different sizes of rock mean different habitat for different fish. There's a lot of really cool knowledge out there that it's my job to either know that all myself or make sure I surround myself with a whole lot of really smart people to make sure that we're building the best habitat possible. And it's really cool to sit through some of these discussions and discuss those higher level whole ecosystem ideas and put them all together to make a habitat that's really going to benefit our species.
That is so, like, that's just the coolest thing ever. You guys, it's as fun as a box of rocks, quite literally. How cool is that? I love it. And yes, in the amazing words of Allie Ward, ask smart people dumb questions because they have so much knowledge that is just oozing from their brains all the time. And I swear to you, they want to share it with you. So that is so cool that one rock can totally change everything. And I think that is absolutely fabulous. Let's go and talk about a little bit more broader term. Obviously, we never want to lose a species. So let's go and talk about not only why do we want to go and keep the species from disappearing, but how it impacts on a really large scale. How is it impacting other ecosystems if we don't have salmon anymore, if we don't have these sturgeon anymore? What would happen?
Yeah, so in Central California, that's a really big problem because our species really are at risk here. And I'm sure, you know, your students might be from all over the place, but everybody saw the national news about the orcas up in Washington and how at risk that pod of endangered orcas are. What's really interesting is that our salmon species in Central California, hundreds of miles away, are impacting those orcas' food supply as well. Because our fish are also really struggling right now, it means there's less food in the Washington area for those orcas because our fish travel that far when they're in the ocean. So that's something that's a really well-known factor. But other things that people don't realize is that, you know, our salmon really take care of our water as well. And if they move out, we'll have other fish move in. So things like non-native species around here are bass and perch and different types of bluegill and things like that that don't belong here and will have significant effects on our water quality and our overall habitat. Generally, we also see that with a big increase in invasive aquatic plants, and that can change the water quality as well. And we'll have a lot of changes, and things like harmful algal blooms will increase. So that impacts our lives as humans because then our water is tainted. We can't go enjoy the river. Our dogs can't drink the water. It becomes very big on an ecological scale very quickly. And a lot of people don't realize that something as small as a salmon species declining in the natural river can cause, you know, the butterfly effect and just cause these ripples of changes throughout their entire ecosystem.
Yep. And And I don't think you guys quite grasp how fast that can happen too. You're talking about massive, massive changes that can happen incredibly fast within a matter of just a couple of years. And then it takes 3 times as long to get those to come back down again. So trying to stop problems before they occur is key. And having the knowledge that you guys can help is huge too. We have these amazing biologists who are working day in and day out to go in and make this happen, but you guys can also make a difference. One, by understanding what you do impacts it. Are you cleaning off your boats? Are you transporting animals that you shouldn't be? Are you releasing animals that you shouldn't be, which I'm sure none of you watching this have ever done before, ever, because I have very smart students and I know that. But now you can go and pass on that information. And now you guys have the resources to ask. If you guys ever have questions, you know that there's people out there who will be love to just go and answer those questions, and will tell you how you can help too. So there are definitely ways where, I know it's summer break right now and you guys are still staring at computers, so thank you for that. I do appreciate it. But when you guys do go outside, it doesn't matter where you live. I know you guys are watching from all over the country. But if there's a waterway near you, which there probably is, here in Vegas, guys, it's Lake Mead. We got to protect it. It's our water. It's important. It still goes to the ocean. There's a really big dam on one side of it, but it still goes to the ocean. We still got to protect it. So it's water that I like to drink from, and it's water that we shower in, and it's still going to make an impact. We have to protect our water sources. So, all right, soapbox, I'm getting off now. Awesome. Oh, let's also talk about that. You are scuba certified, yes?
I am.
Yes. We've talked about this before, guys. I'm a huge proponent of, instead of getting your first car, you guys are all going to roll your eyes at me, but get your scuba certification instead. You can do it as early as 15 or 16 years old. Get it done. Once it is done, if you can ask your parents and you're like, hey guys, I don't want a car, I want my scuba certification, this will genuinely help you regardless of where you think you might end up. One, it's just a really fun hobby. You're going to see amazing places which will inspire you to take care of it. But once you have it, you have it. And what you were saying where you can go and do the scuba surveys?
Yeah, so there's the American Academy of Underwater Sciences, which licenses scientific divers to get paid or volunteer, if you have free time and you want to volunteer, to go do marine underwater surveys. So just like your standard in the woods survey where you would set up a grid and do transects, you do the same thing but underwater. So what you're looking for generally is certain key species of fish that they want to monitor. And in the area I was at, I was in kelp forests. So we were looking for different species of kelp, different species of sea stars, different species of corals, whatever was in the area that was a key monitoring species for that type of habitat. So we would have our underwater data sheets and be swimming with our measuring tapes through the transects, and you could see some amazing things during those. And you have the opportunity to get paid to do it too, which is pretty fantastic.
That sounds pretty awesome. I didn't know that this even existed, guys, and I have been scuba diving for way longer than I want to go and admit publicly. But that's a really cool thing. And even if you guys maybe don't want to get paid for it, because we understand you might want to go and take a different track in life, you can still go and get some awesome dive experience in and still make an impact and help. So I think that's a great resource. We will definitely be linking it in the show notes. So go ahead, check it out. You'll probably be super inspired, because I know I am, and I really want to go and put on a wetsuit right now. Awesome. Well, that just about wraps it up. Do you have any final words? If kids come up to you and they're like, hey, I really like the ocean, I really like, swimming in a lake, or my favorite thing to do is go boating on the lake every weekend, do you think I can do this for a living, kind of thing, what would you tell those kids to be like, actually, I think this could be a career path for you?
500% yes. No matter what you want to do in and around the water and what area you're in, there's a career path that will let you do it. The beauty of that is you just have to find it. And I have, one of my favorite things is when I get emails from high school students just saying, hey, can I talk to you? My mom is friends with so-and-so at your office, and I really I want to talk about your career path and how you got there and what types of jobs exist. I love teaching different age kids about what types of jobs are out there because I didn't have that as a kid. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up besides play with animals. But I didn't know what types of animals there were in a lot of the areas. I grew up in Michigan, so the ocean was more mysterious to me. I didn't know about things like kelp forests, and I didn't know that I could get paid to monitor sea turtle nests or count fish or drive around on a boat and look for poachers. Like, there's so many different types of jobs that exist out there that, you'll never know if you don't ask. So if there's something you're interested in doing, ask biologists. We love helping because we want more biologists. The world needs more biologists. So find somebody, look us up on the internet, have your parents help look us up on the internet. We are happy to answer questions anytime, any place about anything. Even if you don't want to work with fish, if you want to know about my experience working with wildlife, I'll tell you about trapping chipmunks in Yosemite. If you want to know about my experience working with frogs, I'll tell you about my experience chasing frogs around near Lake Tahoe. There's so much out there that you would never know about. And I want kids to be inspired to chase what they want to do. And I want everybody to love their job because you shouldn't hate going to work. You should always love it. And I love my job every day, even if I'm sitting in meetings from 9 to 5. I still love my job, and I want everybody else to as well.
Couldn't have said it better, guys. Really couldn't have. Yep. So that being said, if you have questions, if you have seen a couple of these videos and you have those little inklings of your mind that you want to do something, but you maybe don't know what it's called, or you have an interest in a specific thing. I like going camping. I like going to the beach. How do I get paid to do that? Guys, reach out to us. We are always happy to go and find those people. Even if I might not know the answer, I will go and find these people. We reach out, and I've never met Allie before, and I put the call out, and we were able to go and connect on stuff like this because this is important. And like she said, we want you guys to have those resources. So if you want to do something like this, if you know somebody who wants to do something like this, link them, tag them, share this. I don't care if you have to print out a page-by-page transcript and snail mail it to them, whatever it takes. We are happy to go and get those resources to you. So once again, thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you, Allie, for coming in and sharing your time with me. This has been a great blast. I am so much knowledge that I didn't know. This is always one of my favorite things, guys, is I love learning. It's really fun. I learn every time I do these videos. So yeah, stick around for next week, and we're going to be continuing as long as I can get people interviewed. That is always my one caveat right now, is I'm actually hoping to get some people from different parts of the world. So time differences have been making it a little bit challenging, but I think you guys are definitely going to appreciate when I do manage to get them. But it is hard trying to talk to somebody in Africa when you are in Las Vegas. So bear with me. It might not be every week, but we are working diligently to get you cool information. That about wraps it up. Thank you guys so much. Remember, keep checking back on our Facebook page. You can come and visit the ranch right now. We are open, but always check for your local updates because things can change very, very fast. And as always, if you're unable to come visit, please think about sponsoring an animal or making a donation. Again, you can do that right here on our Facebook page or by visiting lionhabitatranch.org. Thank you guys so much. Want to say one more bye, Allie?
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.